You hear Andy Williams crooning in the background at Christmas time, saying things like, and scary ghost stories from Christmases long, long ago. You probably wish he was singing it. But the point is, did Shakespeare celebrate Christmas with ghost stories? Turns out ghost stories is kind of a huge deal in England, particularly as it relates to Christmas. The people in England don't typically celebrate Halloween as a big thing, that having been replaced by Guy Fawkes Night, and explaining what that is for a different episode. But basically, their ghost stories get poured into Christmas, and there's a fantastic history about why that is. Now, obviously, when you look back at history, you kind of have to decipher where things go. But a lot of historians think that this ghost story tradition was because it was traditionally tied to the Yule celebration, which was a pagan acknowledgement of the winter solstice. It was the longest night of the year, and it was the darkest night of the year, which meant people tended to think that that night of the year, the veil between the human world and the spiritual world was at its thinnest, and it was most likely for ghosts and spirits to interact with the people living on Earth, which, as you can imagine, led to the telling of ghost stories. And the tradition has made it all the way into modern times with songs like Andy Williams' The Most Wonderful Time of the Year. But the origin of these ghost stories goes back much further. In the mid-16th century, the works of Seneca were rediscovered by Italian humanists, and they became models for the revival of tragedy on stage, which by the time William Shakespeare was writing plays like Hamlet meant that ghosts had a particular place in the cast. There are ghosts in Richard II that specifically follow the Seneca model. And then, of course, Macbeth is full of ghosts. Now, none of these are particularly Christmas tales, but one of Shakespeare's plays does represent one of these winter tales. See what I did there? A Winter's Tale is one of Shakespeare's lesser-known plays, but it does represent how the telling of ghost stories was embedded in the celebration of wintertime and Christmas for people like William Shakespeare. The phrase "a winter's tale" was kind of used like what we say of old wives' tale today. It was the idea of a fantastic, far-fetched story told to entertain, surprise, scare, or delight people when they were sitting around a fire trying to keep from freezing and telling each other fun stories. And in case you needed a little nod from William Shakespeare himself, in The Winter's Tale, he even has one of the characters acknowledge that the telling of ghost stories was a popular winter pastime when the character Mamilius, proposing to tell the court a story, says, "A sad tale's best for winter. I have one of spirits and goblins." And if you jump back a little earlier, one of Shakespeare's fellow playwrights, Christopher Marlowe, has a play called The Jew of Malta from 1589, and one of his characters, Barnabas, makes the statement, "Who in my wealth would tell me winter's tales and speak of spirits and ghosts that glide by night?" So you can see from these references that whether or not it was specifically tied to the celebration of Christmas, and it doesn't appear to be connected in any way to the celebration of Christ's birth, it was definitely a part of the winter period, the winter season. And since Christmas falls right smack in the middle of this winter season, it makes sense that ghost stories would become a part of celebrating Christmas. And apparently for William Shakespeare, the term Winter's Tale was synonymous for ghost stories and an established part of the Christmas tradition in Tudor England. That's it for this week here at Did Shakespeare. My name is Cassidy Cash, that's Shakespeare Girl, and I hope you learned something new about the Bard. Don't forget to sign up for our amazing trip next year. We're going to be going to England, and I would like for you to come with us. If you've ever wanted to go to England or you need a reason to go again, this trip is going to be the ultimate Shakespeare trip of a lifetime. We've crammed all of the Shakespeare history we could literally fit into one trip, all into this one. You're going to see some amazing sights and get to go on some exclusive tours only available to groups. Find out more and grab your spot before the registration deadline of February 1st, 2019, all at cassidycash.com/travel Shakespeare. I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.